Hello, gents. Welcome back to Mac Music Review. My name is Mac, and today we are going to be ranking the Vampire Weekend albums. Without any further ado or preamble, besides the preamble where I say there is no preamble, we will hop into it. The Ride or Die Vampire Weekend stands, or the Vamps as they are called in the Playboi Carti community, will tell you that Contra is a fantastic album. Now, I am not a fan of Contra. I really think that the first half of the album is just straight weirdness. Like, it is legitimately the goofiest that Vampire Weekend has ever sounded, and people will admit that and say that they love it. People emotionally connect to songs in the first half of this album, and I'm like, White Sky sounds ridiculous. Like, the vocals and the music and the production, it's like the actual music and the vocal, they're just weird. And then you have really great songs like Ambassador's Son or Giving Up the Gun or Cousins. You have these really good songs that come in the second half of the album, but first half of the album is mostly misses for me. I think this may be the hottest take in this video, is putting Modern Vampires of the City at number 4. The album has my favorite overall Vampire Weekend song, which is Hannah Hunt. I love that song. There's a lot of great songs on this. It's a very lush, it's a very gorgeous sounding record, but it's one that I've never been able to connect to. It's just something about the lyrical content of the album, which is very huge. It's very ambitious, and it's just never connected with me. And the actual songs, the majority of the songs in the album have never really personally done much for me as well. Once again, I think some of the songs just kind of go in a more out there. They go kind of in a left field direction, which is kind of a similar thing going on with Contra, and it's just something that doesn't really work for me. I like it when they're a little bit more simple, especially with these next two albums on this list, which are nearly as ambitious as Modern Vampires of the City. Number 3 on this list, an album that a lot of people are not huge fans of, is Father of the Bride. This was actually my favorite. I was going to say my second favorite. This was my favorite Vampire Weekend album until a couple weeks ago. Legitimately my favorite. I thought this album was fantastic. It was the first one that I was there for when I was like a fan of music, like really into music when the album dropped. I think that probably has a large part of it, to do with me really enjoying it. I was there for the rollout. I was there when Harmony Hall was a single and people were going crazy over it. I was there for all of the singles, and I loved all of the singles from this album, or almost all of the singles. Now, I think the album has a little bit of fat on it that could be trimmed, but in general, it just has so many of my favorite songs. Even if there are a couple misses or songs that are kind of like mid Vampire Weekend, there's so many highlights, and it just has so many of my favorite songs they've ever made. So that's why it's number 3, in the middle of this list. Drum roll, please, because if you know the number 2, you automatically know the number 1. My number 2, my second favorite Vampire Weekend album, is the self-titled album. I actually reviewed this one on the channel a while back. Like I said, Father of the Bride was my favorite for a long, long time, and I just recently decided that there's enough like mediocre tracks or less good tracks on Father of the Bride for me to knock it down and put the first Vampire Weekend album, the self-titled, in the number 1 spot, which I think is really just a classic for the genre, for indie and alternative music, upbeat indie alternative. It's just an absolute classic. I mean, there's only one song in the entire album that I really don't care for, and that's I Stand Corrected. Besides that, I think the songs are at this point classics. And I've even come around to A-Punk, which I really did not like when I first got into music in general. It was kind of an inescapable song, and I always thought it was kind of annoying. Now I enjoy the song, and I just think it's a really great album, and honestly kind of a classic at this point. That's right. It is not recency bias. Only God Was Above Us is the best Vampire Weekend album. I don't think that it's close. I think this album is significantly better than the debut album. And once again, it kind of is probably a Father of the Bride scenario where I was here for the rollout of the album. I was already a massive music fan. I've never been a huge fan of Vampire Weekend. I still wouldn't consider myself a huge fan of this band, but I was a huge fan of this album, and I really like the singles leading up to this album. And I like the singles now more in the context of the album. I think The Surfer is incredible. I think Hope is really amazing. I mean, the album is just grand. It's gorgeous. It musically reminds me a lot of the ideas, and even lyrically some of the themes of Modern Vampires of the City, but it's just Modern of the Vampires of the City, but it hits, but it works for me. That's the way I see this album. It feels very similar, like the albums are kind of related, but it's an album that it's fantastic. It's an amazing album. Expect to see it in my best albums of 2024 video, because it is a huge highlight from this year already. And that's my Vampire Weekend ranking. I'm pretty happy that this video is coming out after their new album. I was wanting to do this ranked video for a really long time. It's been literally 6 months since my last album's ranked video. I've been so busy with life, and things are just now starting to slow down. I don't know when they're going to start picking up, but I'm looking for a job. So I'm just kind of chilling right now. So I really hope, I need to not be lazy. I want to dedicate a little bit of time and energy to the channel. My next video will be my top 10 Modest Mouse songs. Stay tuned for that. I know a lot of people enjoyed my Modest Mouse albums ranked. I like that video. I'm, sort of proud of it. But, yeah, tune in for that one if you care at all about Modest Mouse. And thank you for watching.